Hello everyone, hola a todos. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to UCLA's 39th National Virtual Conference themed New Leadership, A New Beginning. My name is Mayra Macias. I'm the Executive Director of Latino Victory, and I'm humbled to be hosting today's conversation on Latina leaders and civic engagement. Before we begin, I want to share with you a little bit about Latino Victory. Latino Victory is a national organization dedicated to building political power within the Latino community so that the voices and values of our community are reflected at every level of government. And we do this by supporting progressive Latino candidates running for office. And often when I'm talking about this work, I share a statistic, a really staggering statistic that I think will help ground our conversation today. While Latinos make up 18% of the population, we are only 1% of all elected officials. 1%. And within that 1%, Latinas make up less than 40% of Latinx elected officials. What does that mean for us? It means that in the year 2018, 2020, and unfortunately 2022, Latinos, specifically Latinas, are still breaking barriers and making history by becoming the first elected in their respective cities, states, or districts. So much so that this past election cycle, Latino Victory launched a program called First Latinas to do just that. 2020 was a critical year in the election cycle because of the presidential election at the top of the ticket. But for Latino Victory and other Latino organizations, 2020 was a pivotal year for our community because it marked the first time Latinos had the potential to be the largest non-white ethnic voting bloc with 32 million eligible Latino voters. But too many of us know that just because we're eligible to vote does not mean we will. And so at Latino Victory, we really focus on ensuring that we support candidates who are going to engage our communities by lowering barriers of entry to the political process and turning out Latinos to vote. Our theory of change is that when a Latino is on the ballot, Latinos will turn out to vote. And not just for that candidate, but for other candidates on the ticket. Because when Latinos run, they center our community in everything they do. From having campaign materials in multiple languages, including Spanish, and no, Google Translate does not count, to making culturally competent ads that speak to our community in a respectful way, to literally meeting the community where it is, en el mercado, la iglesia, la taqueria, meeting us where we're at. And it's many of these Latinos making historic first who have been empowering folks in our community who have never before felt seen or represented by elected officials within their government. And it's led us to this election cycle have our largest slate of candidates ever, with 88 candidates endorsed from the school board to the White House all over the country. And today I'm going to share two of my favorites and just some amazing Latinas that we help support. In Miami, we helped elect Luisa Santos, the first formally undocumented immigrant to serve on the Miami-Dade School Board. And in New Mexico, Latino Victory supported Teresa Ledger Fernandez, the first Latina to represent New Mexico's 3rd congressional district, but her win also ensured that the entire New Mexico delegation was made up of women of color. And while all these historic firsts are super exciting, they also reveal just how much work our community still has to do to get any type of parity within government representation. In addition to our candidate work, Latino Victory worked in critical swing states like Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Texas, New Mexico, Nevada. And it's because of the work that many Latino-led organizations did that we saw record-breaking turnout all over the country by Latinos, particularly record-breaking turnout of Latinas, who turned out at higher rates than Latinos in several swing states. As I mentioned earlier, there were 32 million eligible Latino voters this election cycle. However, approximately 16.6 actually turned out to vote. And that is a 30% increase from the 2016 election. However, out of 32 million, 16.6 is still less than half of what could have turned out to vote. And the reasons why more Latino voters did not turn out are varied and extensive. We can't forget voter suppression is still a very real threat to democracy. Many of us come from families that immigrated from countries with a history of political corruption, so trusting in government does not come easy. The list goes on and on. But today, in alignment with this conference theme of new beginnings, we want to take this opportunity to recalibrate, to rethink ways to engage our community, to discuss what went wrong, what went right, and start strategizing for 2022. Up next, you'll hear from 4 phenomenal Latinas who are working day in and day out to mobilize our community. From organizing around voting rights in Texas, Florida, and Georgia, to fighting for issues such as educational equity and immigration reform. And remember, the work for the 2022 election cycle has already begun. It's not just enough for us to show up during the presidential elections. We have to get in the habit of voting every election cycle, and we need your help. All of us here watching today are organizers. You can talk to el vecino, primos, primas, la madrina, el padrino, and ensure that these folks in your circle have information about upcoming elections, that you talk to them about candidates that excite you, so that we continue to flex our political muscle, because that's the only way we're going to get elected officials to care about the things that we care about. And remember, it's not just about winning elections. It's a matter of our community survival. With the backdrop of COVID, this is a matter of electing leaders who understand the stakes for our community. And with that, please help me welcome today's panelists. Each of them is going to share a little bit about what brought them to this work, and they'll talk about their organizations. So I'll just share their titles and their orgs. First up, we have Michelle Tremillo, who is the executive director and co-founder of the Texas Organizing Project. Michelle's a 4th-generation Tejana driven by a desire to make her state a place where Latinos and Black families can prosper. Next, we have Elizabeth or Eli Perez, who's a political director for the Arizona Education Association. Eli's a DACA recipient and made history as the first Dreamer member and superdelegate of the DNC. Eli has a long history of organizing. She's worked for numerous political candidates, including serving as the field director for Ruben Gallego's congressional campaign and the Arizona Latino vote director for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Up next, we have Soraya Marquez. Soraya is the Florida State Director for Mi Familia Vota, a position she's held since 2012. She also did some work in Georgia and has over 18 years of experience in a variety of political advocacy positions, ranging from voter registration to voter mobilization. And last but not least, we have Karen Reyes, who is a documented teacher with the American Federation of Teachers in the Austin Independent School District. Karen was a plaintiff in the DACA case, argued successfully before the Supreme Court. Thank you for your work, Karen. And please, let's give everyone a huge round of applause and let's kick off the conversation.
Thank you for the introduction, Mayra. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Tremillo. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Organizing Project. And at TOP, we are a membership organization. Our members are predominantly Latino and Black families living in the largest metro areas of the state. We are in Harris County, which is where Houston is, Fort Bend County, which is right next door, Dallas County, and then Bexar County, which is where my hometown is, San Antonio. And that is where I still live today and where I am participating in this conference from. At TOP, we say that we fight with 2 fists. Our first fist is our people power fist. It is our year-round organizing on a racial and economic justice agenda. The issues that we focus on include ending mass incarceration, economic justice issues like living wages and paid sick leave, housing justice, access to healthcare, excellent public schools, and more recently, climate justice, and also immigration reform. And the second fist is our political power fist. And there, what we do is engage in large-scale voter mobilization programs tied back to that racial and economic justice agenda. So our organization is about 11 years old now, and in each and every election cycle for our our entire 11-year history, we have been steadily growing participation, in particular in Latino and Black communities. So in 2020, we targeted about 1.9 unlikely voters of color, the majority of whom were unlikely Latino voters. And of those 1.9 million unlikely voters of color, about 850,000 of them cast a ballot in an election they were unlikely to participate in. And we targeted those voters through phone banking, texting, social media, and we were in a pandemic, and we do typically do door-to-door canvassing. That is still the most effective way to have meaningful conversations necessary to engage unlikely voters. And in the pandemic, we did end up doing a canvass in the last 3 weeks leading up to the election. So that canvass, we were able to reach out to about 200,000 unlikely voters of color through that canvass. So we have a history of working in communities that have lower participation rates and turning our folks into regular voters and regular participants in our government. And, what we know from talking to millions of unlikely voters of color, and in particular Latino voters, is that, unlikely voters tend not to vote because when they have voted in the past, nothing changed. And, it's really, really critical, those of us who are so focused on making sure that, we have big participation in elections. The key to increasing participation is making sure that when people vote, things change, right? That's a very, very core ingredient necessary for making sure that we have more participation. And so, building a cycle of participation is a year-round venture, right? It's something that we must do 365 days a year. Election day is just one day of that 365-day cycle. So, here we reached out to 1.9 million voters in 2020 and 2021. It's very important that we go back to those voters and say, hey, we talked to you in 2020 and you told us that you cared about these issues. And here's the work that we're doing in 2021 to make sure that we get policies passed at the city level, at the state level, even, trying to influence what's happening in Washington, D.C. Like, here's how we can all participate, and here's how we can make sure that our voice is heard and that things do change when we participate, right? So if somebody said to us, I care about bail reform, there's work happening in all 4 of the counties that we're in to change the cash bail system, which is completely unconstitutional, actually, but so we're working to change that every day of the year. You said you care about police accountability. Come join us. We're collecting petition signatures to get a ballot measure. There will be on the ballot in San Antonio this May, the opportunity to actually force real police accountability in San Antonio. If you care about school funding, we've got a state legislature in session, right? So just really, really creating that cycle of participation. And, we have a lot of people participating in this conference who, maybe you voted for the first time in 2020, maybe you've been voting for the last 30, 40 years straight. And, we all are here because we want, the best democracy that we can have, and we want the most voices in the room that we can get. And, so I will just leave with, again, building a cycle of participation is an every day of the year venture. In 2021, we have local elections, certainly across Texas. There's a lot of local elections on May 1st. I know there's elections all over the country. And outside of an election, every day of the year, our government and our elected officials are making decisions that impact our lives. And so every day of the year, we have an opportunity to participate and to ensure that our elected leadership and our government are reflecting back to us our own values, our own policy priorities. And it's going to take that year-round participation in order for us to have the democracy that we deserve. Thank you.
Gracias, Mayra, for that introduction. Like so many others, I have been more involved in elections and trying to empower our community these last few years. And I think we all know how important it is to get our voices heard. And I have seen the amazing things that can happen when our community comes together. As a DACA recipient, I don't have the privilege of being able to vote. So I know that being involved doesn't always mean voting. Getting our voices heard can mean so many different things. You can be involved both in and out of the voting booth. I've been involved in different ways these last few elections. Some years I've been more hands-on, more active. Others, I just did what I could with the time I had. I've gone block walking, helped organize community forums, phone banked, and more. I remember one of the very first things I did was actually block walking. I had never done this before, and I was pretty nervous, even though my partner had done this before. There I was going up to some stranger's house, ready to talk to someone that I didn't know, but it was actually really great. As I was there talking to them about, this candidate, I realized that it wasn't just about getting them to vote for a candidate or a ballot measure. We had things in common. We were having a conversation. I was able to talk to them and find out what was important to them and to their community. The same thing happened when I phone banked. Let me tell you, I found phone banking so much harder than going block walking, but I had some really amazing conversations with people. I remember that I was speaking to this really lovely older man, and he was just so excited because first I was speaking in Spanish, so he was able to communicate with me. But second, because he had just become a citizen, and this was going to be the very first time that he was going to be able to vote. But he wasn't sure where to go, what to do, or even if he could make it because he worked the night shift and wasn't sure if he was going to be able to make it in time. So together we figured out where he could go to vote. I gave him some resources, told him, that there's early voting going on and where he could go. And he was just so excited. We both left that conversation just feeling so hopeful for his first time to go vote. And another great thing that I was able to be involved in was helping organize a community forum with school board members and candidates. And this was one of my favorite things, and not just because I'm a teacher, but because it involved everyone in our community, even those who might not be able to vote. That includes students, folks in our undocumented community, residents, family members, teachers, everyone. The community members were able to come, ask questions, get answers to things, and even just talk to each other about things that were important to them, their families, and their community. But also, being involved isn't just about election day. It can be about things that happen before that. One of the things I'm most proud to be a part of is our citizenship drives. My local union, Education Austin, has been involved in our Austin citizenship drives for quite a few years. So the Texas AFL-CIO organizes these citizenship drives. And during the drive, we help eligible permanent residents become citizens and help fill out their paperwork. So the morning of, everyone's there. We have hundreds of volunteers. People are lined up for hours just trying to, get in and help take the next step in becoming a citizen. So we help them fill out their applications, make copies of all the paperwork that they need. And we even have lawyers that help them, review their application to make sure everything is good to go. At the end, they get this envelope with a stamp ready to go. And we're also able to provide them with resources that they need in order to take that next step. Later, we also follow up, and when the time comes, we help them register in order to become first-time voters. It's definitely one of my favorite things to do. So these last few years have been pretty busy for me, but I have enjoyed having a hands-on, approach to being involved in nuestra comunidad. And trust me, I know how hard it is to find time to go out and get involved, but that's the great thing about community. You don't have to do everything, and you certainly don't have to do it alone. You can help organize, educate, register, make phone calls, drop literature off. Whatever it is that you have the capacity for, it is making a huge difference. And I hope to see more young Latinos and some of those that aren't so jovencitos like myself get involved.
Hi everyone, I'm Soraya Marquez, State Director for Mi Familia Vota in Florida. I live in Oviedo. I was previously Voter Registration Program Coordinator, Get Out the Vote Program Coordinator, Orlando Coordinator, and State Coordinator. Our work in engaging Latino communities and building partnership is guided by 7 pillars model of community engagement. Under this model, Mi Familia Vota works with schools, local network of businesses, faith organizations, media outlets, community organizations, local consulate of immigrant sending countries, and labor unions in order to maximize our reach and impact. We are tactically located in Arizona, California, Colorado, Florida, Nevada, and Texas, with some of the highest Latino population counts, but have worked to identify and serve communities where Latinos' participation in the electoral process. 2020 was a year that left its mark on us all due to COVID-19. The coronavirus arrived in a year of census and presidential election, for which we plan to achieve our objective under other circumstances. All this situation forced us to be more creative, looking for all possible alternatives to keep in touch with one of the most at-risk communities in this pandemic, Latinos. Confinement led us to a virtual world as our main tool to channel our programs, a tool unknown to many and familiar to few, but an instrument that have allowed us to control paralysis and channel fear. It was identifying the areas that had most impact our community. We conducted surveys and quickly became active on our social network to offer assistance from qualified professionals in the health, employment, housing, psychology, and economic sectors. Despite all the lives that COVID-19 have claimed, we needed to face a census that would define the future of the next 10 years. We had to offer an awareness campaign to ensure everyone was counted. We then began to enter high school so that students would become the motivational engine of their families. We also needed to eliminate the fear of being counted within the immigrant community, fearful of the risk of deportation. It was also a time to which the presidential election was added. We needed to convince Hispanics of the importance of that electoral process. We offered 23 conferences with elected officials at different levels of government, accompanied by the county elections offices. We needed to deepen the importance of a city mayor, a county mayor, a commissioner, a school board member, a state representative, a state senator, a congressman, and above all the importance of requiring the respect, majesty, values, dignity of the presidency of the United States of America. We were the first organization in Florida that complied with all COVID-19 safety protocols and full of passion and free commitment to the community, there to take to the streets to register new Hispanic voters, those who did not feel safe to register their information online. We were pleasantly surprised to surpass the planned goal, achieving today more than 100,000 voter registrations. Upon seeing the results, we decided to knock on the doors of each registered person to motivate them to register the ballot and send it by mail. And if they did not agree to that, at least to vote earlier. We took the message to 156,240 families. We have a safety staff team that did an extraordinary job achieving our most important goal, 0 COVID positive cases in our team of volunteers. While this was happening, another team of volunteers multiplied the same message through 407,415 calls, 13,391 texts, and 67,000 mailers on the person-to-person battlefield. We have the support of an extraordinary team of volunteers who have understood through years of working with us that each election must reinforce our democracy as long as we achieve our goals without stopping our work until the general election day. Once the objectives were achieved in Florida, we understood that our work had not yet ended if we did not make our contribution in Georgia. Georgia has been a unique and unforgettable experience for us, a climate and a territory totally opposite to our sunshine state. In 72 hours, we built a team of 40 volunteers with incredible diversity: African American, Asian, Hispanic, Muslim, Catholic, Christian, all working together for the same goal. Our goal was to knock on the door of 40,000 registered citizens. Neither the cold nor the hills prevent us from meeting our goal, and it was not 40,000, but 45,000 families we visited, 500,000 calls, 1 million texts from November 8th to January 5th, when we all celebrate the result of the participation of electorate that, for the second time, spoke out loud and clear. Dr. Juan Andrade Jr., members of the Board of Directors of the United States Hispanic Leadership Institute, and friends. In 2020, democracy was imposed, and the people's decision was respected. But our work is not over. We continue to have a mandatory and commitment with more than 12 million people and with the dreamers who need justice for their work and their commitment to this country. Immigration reform has to have not just a happy ending, but a just ending. I invite you all to continue with this commitment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Maida. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, and I hope that we don't do this virtual, much longer, that soon, hopefully, we're able to meet in person and have these experiences in person. But again, thank you so much for the time. My name is Eli Perez. I currently serve as the political director for the Arizona Education Association, and that is the largest educator and education support staff union in the state of Arizona. We have the pleasure of serving over 20,000 members, and among those are my former educators, like my former 5th grade teachers, 3rd grade teachers, so it's great to be able to give back to the people who helped shape my life. I am a proud public school product, and I grew up in Arizona public schools. My family goes to Arizona public schools, and one day soon, I hope my children will also go through Arizona public schools. Before I served in this role, I had many other roles. I think the most important that might resonate with some of you is community organizer. So every time I'm asked, what I do for a living, I tell them my current job, but my real job is a community organizer. And a community organizer, as you all know, focuses on empowering their community and making sure that community members in their neighborhood know that their voice is important and that their voice needs to be heard, and teaches people how to use their voice to enact change, whether it's through a policy, whether it's to get a pothole filled, while at the city council, or whether it is to install a sign of a speed limit in a neighborhood. Being a community organizer takes a lot of shapes and forms, but I think it's one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had. Which brings me to why I'm here with you all today. If you are currently a community organizer, or if you currently are involved in any way, shape, or form in your community, first and foremost, I want to start off and say thank you, and say thank you again and again and again, because I know firsthand that a lot of the times this is a very thankless job, but when you install that yard sign, when you install that street sign, when you get that pothole filled, and when you win that election, or when you pass that policy, it's all the things in the world that you need, because you know that you have helped make a mark and that your community will be better for it.
So before I served at the Arizona Education Association, I had the pleasure of working on electoral campaigns, some of which we very, very proudly made Arizona history by electing the first female mayor in Phoenix in almost a century, the first millennial to be a mayor in one of the youngest mayors in our country, Mayor Kate Gallego. I had the pleasure of working with her from her time as a city council candidate to a city councilwoman, to her time as vice mayor, and then to her time as a city council mayoral candidate, and now as mayor. So I'm very proud of that. I've gotten to work at several levels of the government as well. I worked for some congressional campaigns, among those Congressman Ruben Gallego, which is also an alumni of programs like this, and I think he might be joining us later today. So I worked on his very first campaign in 2014. And my last federal campaign that I did is one that's very near and dear to my heart. I worked with then former Mayor Greg Stanton, who was running for Congress to continue the hold on Congressional District 9 from a Democrat. And so we were very, very happy to win that seat outright by more than his former predecessor had. So we won that seat by 20 points more than the previous holder of that seat had won. So it was something something amazing. And I think it was a great testament, not only to our work as a field team, because I led the field team as the field and political director, but it was also a testament of the kind of candidate that we were bringing to the state, someone with a proven track record and someone with really good policy and a great team behind him. So that's my latest role in electoral politics. I've also worked on some ballot initiatives. The latest one is with the Arizona Education Association, Proposition 208, which will permanently generate almost $1 billion to public schools, public education in Arizona. And that's something that we're so proud of. It includes teacher raises. It includes money to hire more teachers, money for CTE trainings, and it includes money for scholarships for educators and mentorship. So we're very, very, very proud of that. If you're thinking about getting involved, or if you're wondering why you should get involved, I came to this country when I was 4 years old. My mother brought my sisters and I here, and we crossed undocumented. So I grew up my whole life knowing I was undocumented. And at 16, it doesn't really mean anything, but at 18, 21, 22, it means a lot, especially when you come from a state where SB 1070 is the land of the law. The law of the land. I get tongue-tied. But what that did for me was it empowered me. It gave me an opportunity to help my community, and most of all, help my mom. My being involved, and my taking a risk, and my taking a chance, and my taking a very low-paying job, to be quite honest, opened up the door for my family to be able to drive down the Arizona freeways, drive down Arizona streets, and feel safe. You know, there's a lot of things that we still need to fix in our state, but I think that being involved has helped me create that environment where my mom can drive to work and not worry, where my sister can, have my niece play outside and not worry that someone will come and take her because my sister is undocumented. And so being involved has really opened that up for myself and for my family. And the things that I always tell young people who are, thinking about getting involved and thinking about what their next role should be is always lead with your heart and lead with your passion, and your community will follow. They will find a way to get us to where we need to be. I've been very lucky to have amazing mentorships and amazing people just help me throughout the way and take a chance on me. And I don't say that lightly, a young girl with no organizing background who was able to lead a team, or co-lead a team in that first city council race that she was on, to the first time she was a finance director, to the first time she was a political director, to now in my current role, the first time leading a ballot initiative, a statewide ballot initiative with the future of education in our hands. It would not have been possible without people who took a chance on me and not only realized that it was worth the investment, both financially, but it was the investment that we were going to make in our state long-term. So if you're out there thinking, why should I be involved? Does it even matter? I think this past election, people like us, people that look like us, that sound like us, that have our experiences, that have the tias, the nanas, the mamas, we made that difference. we were able to talk to them and ask them to vote. And so if you're thinking about getting involved in the next cycle, please, please, please do so. We need your voice, we need your talents, and we need your passion to make sure that our community does not continue to be a community of underserved and underrepresented Americans, because we deserve so much more, and we definitely need you. So I want to say thank you again from the bottom of my heart for letting me share this time with you. And most importantly, thank you so much for the work that you do and the work that you will continue to do, and for inspiring me and so many others like myself to know that after my time is done in organizing, and after I retire from this, that I know that our community will be in great hands because you're going to be leading them. And I can't tell you how grateful I am and how grateful I will be, because of you, my children will be able to dream bigger than I ever have been able to. And because of you, my children will be able to live in a community that really does value them. So thank you so much. I can't wait to see you all in person. Please take care, stay safe. And again, just keep on being the awesome muse that you are. And muchas, muchas, muchas gracias. Que Dios los bendiga. Adios.
I'm giving all of you a virtual round of applause. Like my good friend Natalie Montelongo says, the future is Latina. And these 4 phenomenal Latinas just demonstrated why. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Soraya. Thank you, Karen, for your leadership and your service to our community. And for all of you watching, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that this conversation continues to build on the momentum that we saw in 2020. We saw Latinas making history, whether it was running for office or turning out to vote in historic numbers. And the success of our community is contingent upon us continuing to flex our political muscle. So all of you watching, let's make sure that we talk to folks in our community, that we're mobilizing those in our inner circles, and that we're continuing to invest in our own development and growth by joining conferences like these, by continuing to work with organizations like UCLA. And with that, gracias a todos y que sigan pa'lante. Bye.